Hi geography students, this is Miss Wildy. I'm going to use this video lecture as a supplement to the other Chapter 2 video lecture I have as a review for the test. This one will be very short and it will look very similar. I'm just going to kind of go through these slides very quickly. But what I'm going to do is add a few additional information, mostly because of the update from the new textbook. Most of the information is exactly the same in terms of population density. You remember you need to know both arithmetic and physiologic. The other thing to consider is sort of that it's not going to take into consideration internal clustering and that kind of thing. Egypt would be an example of one that would have somewhat low arithmetic population density, but be very high physiologic, since so much of the country is in desert. Dot maps are especially important to see where the majority of the population lives. You should know, again, East Asia and South Asia, they're located near rivers. That's where farming began. And then in Europe, the population is actually concentrated more near coal deposits from the Industrial Revolution. So that's a key difference from them. And then lastly, with North America being your fourth largest population density area or region, the megalopolis of Boswash, Boston, Washington, D.C. is a big deal. And the countries that make up Boswash are Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Malthus and Ehrlich are still important. This is called the J-curve for your population. I think you pretty much understand this. Again, you know, big point at which population started to increase is around the Industrial Revolution, and then it's just kept going. That was sort of that boom. Again, rate of natural increase is important, and the formula for the rate of natural increase is births minus deaths divided by 10. And you can tell a whole lot about where a country is at and where it's headed based on its RNI. Fertility rates, total fertility rates are also important and kind of tell you a whole lot about the country. Remember, India is going to surpass China by 2030, 2050. Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Either way, it's going to surpass China. They need to do a little bit more in terms of slowing the birth rate down, but that will happen as they industrialize more and women get more education. Demographic transition. This is the one that I really wanted to stress with this. So the demographic transition is taken from birth rates and death rates. Your mortality rate is your death rate. And these are the different stages. So stage 1 is still, as it was in the original video lecture, is a low stage or a low growth stage because your births are high and your deaths are high. So by the end of the year, there's really not much difference from January to December in terms of how many people are still around. It's not much change from year to year. Once you start declining that death rate, though, once that death rate starts going down because of good sanitation and medicine, that's when you'll have high growth because your birth rate has not slowed at all. It's still as high as it was in stage 1. But the death rate has come down, which means that there are more people living than there ever have before all at once. And so you have more population growth by the end of the year. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Now, what has to happen for stage 3 is that your birth rate starts to go down. This usually happens because of industrialization. It's still a high birth rate comparatively to, you know, stage 4 or 5 countries, but it's actually lower than it used to be. And that's why this is moderate growth. You still have more births than deaths. But your amount of people at the end of the year has come down slightly from stage 2. Stage 4, things considerably go down even more lower birth rate, more lower death rate, and so that's called a low growth or even stationary growth. Maybe you have 0 population growth where you have just as many babies being born as people dying. Stage 5 is when you have negative or declining growth, and that means that you have more old people dying than you have babies being born to replace them. And that's why they might have a negative rate of natural increase. This is not good because it oftentimes puts in a high dependency ratio of the older people being dependent on the working class to support them. There's not enough pensions and money in the taxes to take care of those old people. Last thing I want to talk about with this chart is that this A line is your rate of natural increase, basically. The B line is your death rate, and the C line is your birth rate. So just to keep that into consideration. And those are the terms, of course, for each stage. Please remember to be able to name countries in each of these stages. We don't technically have any country in stage 1, although there are countries that are still in that stage 1 to stage 2 situation. A lot of countries in sub-Saharan Africa are going to be in that 1 to 2. A lot of countries in Central America are going to be more stage 2. Stage 3 is going to be our BRICS countries, or our more, industrializing countries like Brazil, Mexico, India, China. Stage 4 is going to be like the United States, Australia, United Kingdom, and then declining is going to be like Japan, countries that have, again, a negative growth because they have not enough babies being born to replace the people that are dying. So be aware of that. And then, of course, beyond that, make sure that you can understand, looking at a population pyramid, what that means. Now, these are very outdated, and your book has updated statistics and population pyramids. I strongly encourage you to look at that. I couldn't find that image to be able to put that into this supplemental video lecture. But I think you still understand it still applies regardless of what year we're at. Again, looking at these countries being more stage 2 countries, based on their population. They still have lots of babies, lots and lots of babies, not very many people living very old. Versus a country population pyramid, maybe a country stage 4 population pyramid is going to be more rectangular base and more people in that 75 plus, right? They can live longer. A stage 5 country is going to have a inverted pyramid, not a truly inverted, but it will come back down into more of a V shape at the bottom because they're having less babies again. So kind of keep that information clear between population pyramids and the DTM. Infant mortality rates have a huge role to play in population pyramids. Life expectancy has a role to play. AIDS has changed the way population pyramids look as well. Remember this idea that really it's sort of a chimney looking thing because nobody really lives past a certain age, and that's because of the HIV cases and AIDS. Again, here are some wealthier countries like we talked about earlier with stage 4 or even stage 5. Again, look at this wealthier countries with that more inverted base. That's going to be a stage 5 country. France and the United States, more rectangular in base, is going to be more stage 4. Again, many parts of Europe and Japan are having issues with this aging population and not enough babies being born and that high dependency ratio. Really, you truly want a TFR of 2.1. I think that's fairly obvious. And then lastly, the other impact you're going to have in countries with longer life expectancies is that there also are longer they're longer life, but there's more chronic diseases or degenerative diseases. Heart disease and cancer are still our top 2. And then the last thing are expansive, eugenic, and restrictive policies. One thing I want to make sure you understand is sometimes there's some terminology that the College Board uses for AP Human Geography exam. And so if it's an expansive policy, it's a pro-natalist policy. You can have an expansive policy that would be encouraging immigration. That's not pro-natalist. Natology is the study of infants. Natal, if you've ever heard of a neonatal unit, that's a new baby intensive care unit. So if they're pro-natalist, they are pro-baby, encouraging people to have babies. If they're anti-natalist, they're a restrictive policy, like the one-child policy in China would be an anti-natalist policy. They are against people having babies, right? So I think those make sense now. I just wanted to kind of clear that stuff up. Hopefully you are watching both the original video lecture as well as this one as a supplement to it. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.